Jeff Bezos, once known for his sharp business mind and his unstoppable energy, has stopped smiling, and the change is not small. It is visible in every photograph, every public appearance, every carefully staged moment. And people are asking, why look? Back at a photo from 2019, Jeff at a charity gala, his face glowing with a smile that was impossible to fake. It was the look of genuine happiness, the look of a man who believed he had found not only success, but also love. Now fast forward to 2024. The same event, the same smile, at least on the surface. But look closer, something is missing. Something is dead behind his eyes, the warmth, the spark, the authenticity. It is gone, and that missing spark tells a deeper story. To understand this change, we have to step back and look at the timeline of Jeff Bezos, his relationships, and the choices that shaped his emotional life. On January 9th, 2019, Jeff and his wife of 25 years, MacKenzie Scott, announced their divorce. The news shook the world not only because of the staggering fortune involved, but also because MacKenzie was more than a wife. She was Amazon employee number 1. She had been there from the beginning, driving cross-country in 1994 while Jeff wrote the business plan. In the passenger seat helping him pack books in their garage, when Amazon could not afford employees, the bond they had was rooted in shared struggle and shared vision. The divorce settlement was historic $38 billion in Amazon stock, the largest in history, and what shocked people most was that Jeff handed it over willingly. No bitter battle, no endless courtroom fights. He simply gave her a quarter of his fortune because he believed he had found something more valuable: love. With Lauren Sánchez. For a while, the world seemed to agree. Photos of Jeff and Lauren from 2019 showed a man glowing. Headlines called him happier than ever. Magazines declared the richest man alive had finally found love. It looked like the fairy tale, ending to a very public divorce in those early days. Lauren seemed too good to be true. She refused his gifts. She insisted on splitting bills even at the most expensive restaurants. She presented herself as independent, strong, successful, not someone who needed his billions for validation, and for a man surrounded by people who always wanted something from him. This was intoxicating. It felt authentic. But then the story began to shift after the divorce was finalized and the settlement made official. Lauren's behavior changed. The woman who once said no to luxury started saying yes. Experts in cosmetic surgery began pointing out dramatic changes in her appearance, changes that likely cost between $500,000 and $2 million. And, according to reports, Jeff was paying the bills. He saw it as generosity. She saw it as transformation. And psychologists see something else. They call it the boiling frog effect. Each step small enough to feel normal compared to the last, until one day you realize the entire environment has changed and you are trapped without noticing. The same man who once valued simplicity and privacy was now being guided into a life of spectacle when wedding planning began. Jeff wanted something private, intimate, true to the way he had lived with MacKenzie. Small dinners, private gatherings focused on conversation, not performance. But Lauren wanted something else: a 3-day spectacle in Venice with cameras, celebrities, fashion, and luxury on display. When Jeff hesitated, Lauren reportedly grew furious. She wanted the world to see the marriage. She wanted it documented. She wanted it to crown her transformation from local news anchor to global celebrity. By June 2025, the vision had shifted entirely. What was supposed to be a wedding became a global event costing $76 million. Guests included Leonardo DiCaprio, Kim Kardashian, Oprah Winfrey, and Bill Gates. Many of them not even Jeff's personal friends, but Lauren's connections. She wore 27 different designer outfits. Her main dress alone cost $500,000. Fashion experts estimate the total wardrobe exceeded $2 million, and professional media teams were hired to manage and broadcast every moment. The cost was staggering, but the damage was even greater. The city of Venice was disrupted. Entire neighborhoods blocked. Local Venetians protesting tourists, frustrated water taxis halted for security reasons. The richest man in the world had displaced an entire city for 3 days of spectacle, and the optics were terrible. Meanwhile, back home, Amazon employees were facing layoffs. Over 18,000 jobs cut in 2022 and 2023. The contrast was brutal. The man who had once built a reputation For long-term discipline was now spending more on a wedding than some countries spend in a year. While his own employees were losing their livelihoods, internal forums lit up with anger and disappointment. Workers wrote about the hypocrisy of efficiency. Cuts in a founder spending $76 million on a party. It was a public relations disaster, and Jeff was forced into damage control, donating millions to Venetian cultural programs just to quiet the outrage. But the damage to his image was only part of the story. The real cost was internal photographs from 2019 showed Jeff's authentic Duchenne smile, the kind that lights up the eyes. By 2022. That smile was gone, replaced by what psychologists call the social smile, a performance for the camera's a mask rather than a reflection of joy. Experts studying his body language saw the signs, micro-expressions of stress, fatigue, posture, stiff eyes, cold. The difference between freedom and performance. The irony is sharp as Lauren's appearance grew more dramatically transformed. Jeff's expressions became more guarded. She enhanced her face, while he restricted his emotions. Her transformation was outward, his was inward. He was paying the price of a relationship built on spectacle rather than substance. This is where the contrast with MacKenzie becomes impossible to ignore. After receiving $38 billion, she did not spend. She gave it away quietly, systematically. $19 billion by 2024 to organizations supporting marginalized communities. Her donations often anonymous, showing that recognition was never the goal. She was proving that money had never defined her. She had been overlooked during the marriage, and now she was giving to those overlooked by society. Her actions spoke louder than any interview could. Jeff had left a partner who proved she did not care about money for one whose every move suggested money was central. He traded stability for spectacle, and the price was his peace of mind. So why did Jeff Bezos stop smiling? The answer is that he learned too late the difference between authentic love and expensive performance. He wears the smile of transaction, not the smile of joy. He knows now that money can buy weddings, yachts, parties, headlines, but it cannot buy the authenticity he once had with MacKenzie, and it cannot buy the peace of being loved for who you are, not what you provide. And yet the story does not end here, because Lauren's ambitions are only beginning. Fashion, Hollywood, media ventures. She is positioning herself for more. The $76 million wedding was not the finale. It was the opening act, and Jeff knows it. This is only the beginning of the unraveling, and the smile that once came so easily may never return. To understand how Jeff Bezos reached the point where his smile faded, we need to look at the foundation of his life with MacKenzie Scott. Because the truth is that his rise to the top of the business world was never a solo act. It was built on the quiet, steady partnership of a woman who believed in his vision when almost nobody else did. In 1994, Jeff was working at a hedge fund in New York City when he told MacKenzie he wanted to leave everything behind to chase an idea selling books on the internet, something that sounded absurd at the time. MacKenzie did not laugh. She did not dismiss it. She got in the car with him, and they drove cross-country to Seattle while Jeff typed out the first drafts of the Amazon business plan. She was there not just as a wife, but as a co-founder. Their garage became the first Amazon warehouse. She packed orders, taped boxes, managed the books. When investors doubted Jeff, MacKenzie reminded him why he started when stress threatened to overwhelm him. She was the one who grounded him. And as the company grew, Jeff became the face, but MacKenzie was the backbone. Their marriage was never about luxury, it was about survival, building something out of nothing. And that shaped who Jeff was for 25 years. The shift after their divorce was dramatic, not only financially, but psychologically. Because when a man has spent decades being grounded in shared sacrifice, the sudden immersion into a world of spectacle can feel intoxicating. Lauren's arrival came at the perfect moment. Jeff was vulnerable after a public split. His image was shaken, his personal life scrutinized, and here was a glamorous television personality helicopter pilot connected to Hollywood, offering him not just companionship, but escape from the old narrative. In the beginning, Lauren's strategy was subtle. She made Jeff feel like a normal man again. She turned down gifts, she picked up dinner tabs, she acted like she wanted Jeff the person, not Jeff the billionaire, and That was powerful. Psychology experts call this mirroring, showing the other person what they most long to see in themselves after decades of being treated as a walking bank account. Jeff was suddenly with someone who seemed immune to his money, and he fell for it. But the illusion did not last once. The divorce papers were signed once $38 billion had gone to MacKenzie. The tone began to shift. Lauren began accepting gifts, then demanding bigger gestures, then reshaping not only her appearance but Jeff's life piece by piece. This is why experts compare it to the boiling frog effect, because no single step looks outrageous when compared to the last, but taken together, the pattern is unmistakable. By 2021, the difference was visible. Jeff was no longer the same man who valued frugality and discipline. He was chasing experiences, yachts, rockets, parties, headlines, and always with Lauren by his side. Many in the media painted it as a midlife rebirth. But to those who studied his expressions, the truth looked darker. His smiles no longer matched his eyes. His body language told a story of strain. Meanwhile, MacKenzie's path revealed a different truth entirely after receiving her $38 billion settlement. She could have done anything. She could have bought palaces, collected art, hosted events rivaling royalty. Instead, she chose to give it away. She gave billions to historically black colleges, to food banks, to women's organizations. She gave to causes that received little media attention. She even wrote in public letters that she would keep giving until the safe was empty. This was not just generosity, it was a statement, a silent counterpoint to the choices Jeff was making. Her actions said I was never here for the money. The contrast between the two women in Jeff's life could not be sharper. MacKenzie anonymous, giving Lauren public spectacle. MacKenzie empowering the invisible. Lauren spotlighting herself. MacKenzie walking away from wealth. Lauren surrounding herself with it. And in the middle of this, Jeff, a man torn between the stability of his past and the performance of his present. The Venice wedding was the clearest example of how far the transformation had gone. Because it was not simply a wedding, it was theater, it was branding, it was social climbing disguised as romance. Every outfit curated, every guest list designed, every moment broadcast to the world as proof of status. And yet in the photos of Jeff at that wedding, what do we see? Not the glowing smile of a man in love, but the strained grin of a man fulfilling an obligation. Body language analysts have noted the tension in his jaw, the stiffness in his posture, the absence of true joy in his eyes, and these are not small details. They are measurable signs of emotional labor, the psychological burden of performing happiness when you no longer feel it, and when the richest man in the world has to work that hard just to appear content. It tells us everything we need to know about the state of his heart. The irony is devastating because Jeff Bezos built his empire on understanding human behavior better than anyone. He knew how to predict what people would want before they knew it themselves. He created a company that reshaped global shopping habits, and yet, when it came to his personal life, he fell for the oldest play in the book, the promise of love without strings that slowly revealed itself to be the most expensive string of all. The public began noticing the shift too. In 2019, headlines called him happier than ever. By 2023, the tone had changed. Outlets speculated about his stress, about the cost of his wedding, about his increasingly polished but lifeless appearances. The man who once seemed to glow with new romance now looked tired, older, not in years but in spirit. At the same time, MacKenzie became one of the most admired philanthropists in the world. Her quiet, steady giving earned respect across political and cultural lines. She became the symbol of authentic wealth, the kind that transforms lives instead of showcasing status. She never sat for long interviews, never aired grievances, never publicly attacked. Jeff, her silence was her statement, and that silence cut deeper than any tell-all ever could. By refusing to speak, she forced the world to look at her actions, and in those actions, the contrast was undeniable. While Jeff spent $76 million on 3 days of spectacle, MacKenzie gave $19 billion to those who needed it. Most one smile had turned to performance, the other had turned to impact, and the world noticed. This is the heart of the exposé. Jeff Bezos stopped smiling because he realized too late that the woman he left behind had shown him what authenticity looked like, and the woman he chose was showing him what performance costs his marriage to MacKenzie had been, about building his marriage to Lauren had become, about displaying, and the weight of that truth shows on his face. But the story goes even deeper because the psychology behind these choices is not unique to billionaires. It is the same dynamic experts see in marriages at every income level. Only the price tags change the man who leaves a steady, loyal partner for someone new and exciting, only to discover the excitement was built on demands, the boiling frog effect that creeps in one request at a time, the realization that the smile you thought was happiness was actually a mask for compromise. Jeff Bezos is simply living the same story millions live every day, except his version comes with yachts, rockets, and a $76 million wedding. The psychology, however, is identical, and that is what makes this story universal. The Venice wedding was supposed to be a triumph, a celebration of love, a statement that the richest man in the world had finally found the partner who completed him. But instead, it became the turning point that exposed the cracks not just in Jeff Bezos' private life, but in his public image. The event was enormous. 3 days of opulence costing $76 million. Venice, a city already burdened by mass tourism, was locked down, entire canals, blocked security details patrolling gondolas, locals unable to move freely, neighborhoods cordoned off for celebrities to arrive in comfort. To outsiders, it looked like royalty, staging a coronation, but to Venetians, it felt like invasion protests broke out small but loud residents holding signs, demanding their city back, calling the event a circus. And for the first time in decades, Jeff Bezos faced not admiration, but ridicule. Italian newspapers compared the wedding to the excess of fallen empires. Commentators called it a display of tone. Deaf wealth, the optics were disastrous. Back in the United States, the timing could not have been worse. Amazon had just laid off 18,000 employees in 2022 and 2023. Families torn apart, careers ended, workers told the company needed to cut costs while its founder spent more money on a wedding than most companies earn in a year. Employees took to internal forums like blind venting frustration. Some wrote that the founder who once prided himself on frugality was now burning millions. For vanity, others noted that leadership credibility was gone. How could workers believe in sacrifice when their former CEO was spending more on fireworks than they made in a lifetime? This was not just gossip. It was morale, and morale affects performance. The fallout was severe. Jeff was forced to donate millions to Venetian cultural groups to calm the outrage, but donations after the fact only underscored the damage. It felt less like generosity and more like guilt control the narrative by paying the bill. But the world had already seen the contrast. For those who studied Jeff's history, the wedding represented a betrayal of his own principles. The man who once ate at McDonald's to save money while building Amazon, the man who made frugality a core value of his company, the man who demanded cost-cutting at every level, was now indulging in excess that mocked his own philosophy. It was not just hypocrisy, it was identity loss, and that loss was written all over his face. Photographs from 2019 showed a man in love, his Duchenne smile, authentic muscles around his eyes, engaged true joy radiating. But by 2021, the edges had dulled. By 2022, the light in his eyes was gone, replaced by the kind of social smile psychologists recognize as performance. The mouth curves upward, but the eyes remain flat. Experts like Paul Ekman have studied this for decades. Genuine emotion activates involuntary muscles. Social smiles do not. And Jeff's later photos were textbook cases of emotional labor. The exhausting work of pretending year by year. The transformation is visible. 2019. Jeff glowing beside Lauren, new romance excitement headlines calling him reborn. 2020, still smiling but less spontaneously. Moments of tension creeping into his expression. 2021. Post-pandemic public appearances fewer, but marked by stiffness, his eyes no longer aligned with his grin. 2022. At events for Blue Origin, his mouth smiling, but his gaze distant. Analysts noted micro-expressions of frustration, flashes of fatigue. Caught in milliseconds on camera. 2023. During early wedding planning, his body posture grew more rigid, his hand placements more defensive, his face a mask of compliance rather than joy. And by 2024, the pattern was undeniable. The irony is sharp because, while Jeff was losing his smile, Lauren was transforming her cosmetic surgeon's estimate procedures, ranging from fillers to lifts to contouring costing millions, her appearance becoming sharper, more camera-ready, more polished as his authenticity. Faded hers was manufactured. They were traveling opposite roads, one outward, one inward. Media narratives began to shift. Entertainment magazines that once gushed about their romance now wrote cautiously about the cost, the spectacle, the plastic perfection. The whispers grew louder. Was Jeff happy, or was he trapped? Had he traded authenticity for performance? And most damning of all, people began to compare Lauren to MacKenzie. Not in looks, not in glamour, but in values, while Lauren staged spectacles. MacKenzie continued giving quietly, another billion here, another billion there. Organizations shocked to receive donations with no strings attached, no demand for naming rights, no media parade. The contrast was almost too perfect, one woman building silently, the other broadcasting loudly. One woman making herself smaller, so others could grow, the other making herself larger, so the world could see. And in the center, Jeff Bezos struggling to convince himself that the performance was worth the price. Psychologists warn that emotional labor erodes authenticity over time. The more you perform, the harder it becomes to remember what genuine feels like. Eventually, the mask fuses with the face, and the man behind it disappears. And that is the tragedy visible in Jeff Bezos by 2024. He was no longer the visionary, laughing in his garage with MacKenzie packing books. He was no longer the glowing billionaire who believed he had found love. He was the richest man in the world, trapped in a narrative he could not escape. And here is where the exposé cuts deepest, because this is not just about Jeff Bezos, it is about the universal truth of relationships, built on performance, whether you earn $30,000 a year or $30 billion. The psychology is the same at first. The new love feels liberating. Then slowly the demands creep in, one small request at a time, until you realize your freedom has become performance and your joy has become obligation. Jeff Bezos stopped smiling, because his soul recognized the transaction, even if his mouth kept pretending. And so the cameras never truly stopped following Lauren Sánchez, because for her the performance was not confined to one gala or yacht or wedding, but stretched across every facet of life, where each smile had to be wider, each jewel larger, each entrance grander than the last. And Jeff Bezos, by her side, became both the beneficiary and the casualty of this endless escalation. Because while he was finally living out the spectacle of wealth without apology, he was also drained of the quiet satisfaction that once defined his victories. For once he had smiled simply because a rocket launched. Now he smiled because a camera demanded it. For once he had laughed at a boardroom joke. Now he laughed because a headline needed it. And slowly observers began to realize that the change was not sudden, but gradual. The erosion of joy hidden beneath the constant shine. And this is where experts in relationships point to something crucial: when a partnership becomes a stage play rather than a shared home, when gestures are rehearsed rather than spontaneous, the bond loses its private strength and must rely on public approval to survive. So the photos tell the tale: the early days when Jeff glowed beside Lauren as if discovering adventure anew, and the later days when his face seemed carved in stone, carrying a smile, but no warmth, as if the act had consumed the actor. Meanwhile, Lauren thrived in this arena, because for her, visibility was oxygen. She had been a reporter, a pilot, a television personality. Her career was built on being seen, and now with Bezos, she had the grandest spotlight of all. But the more she shined, the more Jeff receded into shadows. Behind her, brilliance and this imbalance was never shouted from rooftops yet. It whispered in every captured glance, every stiffened posture, every awkward red carpet moment where his body turned slightly away as hers leaned fully into the flashbulbs. The question is not whether Jeff Bezos loves Lauren Sánchez. The question is whether love expressed through spectacle can sustain itself when the cameras leave, because in private silence there are no diamond necklaces, no Schiaparelli gowns, no billion-dollar yachts. There is only conversation, laughter, understanding, or the absence of them. And for many watching closely, the concern was not jealousy or scandal, but the deeper psychological toll that constant performance demands. It drains authenticity, it strips joy of its spontaneity. It leaves one partner always on guard, the other always on stage. And Jeff, who once radiated contentment, now seemed weighed down by the cost of keeping up appearances. This is not unique to billionaires. Couples at every level face the same pattern when one thrives in external validation while the other longs for internal peace. The outcome is often disconnection masked by outward unity. Yet what makes this story resonate so deeply is that even at the summit of human wealth and power, the dynamics remain achingly familiar. The smile fading, the spark dimming the quiet ache of a man who once conquered worlds and now wonders why he cannot conquer his own happiness. And as part 4 closes, we stand at the threshold of that paradox, the richest man alive who can buy anything, yet finds the simplest treasure, genuine joy, slipping farther from reach. At the end of the day, Hollywood isn't just about glamour and red carpets. It's about power, secrets, and the scandals that often stay hidden until the truth forces its way into the spotlight. Whether it's courtroom drama, relationship, chaos, or behind-the-scenes deals, one thing is certain: the story never ends here, and as always, we'll be watching, digging, and uncovering the pieces others try to keep buried.